Hey, what's up? I'm your host, Bob Thompson, and welcome to Unleashing Greatness, the #1 show for people who are ready to finally start or scale their own business and do it successfully. Over the last 9 years, I've scaled my little basement business to 15 plus locations and several other businesses, but it hasn't been without trial and error and lots of adversity. I'm here to share with you the strategies and tools that actually work when running a business and how not to lose yourself while doing it. So if you're ready to unleash the greatness within you, let's dive into today's show. Over the course of 5 or 6 years, I spent $1 million running ads for my gyms. As a result of spending that $1 million, I was able to generate over $20 million in sales. Now, I don't have my gyms anymore. However, I'm still in charge of managing the ads for my franchisees, as well as a lot of the gym owners in Amplify Your Gym. And I've run ads for several other industries, and I've kind of really dialed in how to make lead gen happen, how to make it happen profitably, get a high return of investment, but also really how to maximize getting cheap qualified leads. So if you're not getting, good lead flow, good cost per lead, or any of that stuff, what I'd love to talk about today is what you can look at in your ads to make changes so that you can get those improvements. That way, you're not just being like, hey, ads don't work, let me completely scrap it. Instead, be like, here's these 2 key metrics that we look at. And if they're off, here's these 4, data points that we then go to. And we look at this pretty much every day anyway for ads. But here's what we go to take a look at. What is off? Why aren't these converting as good as possible? Now, I'll be talking about especially for gyms. But if you have any local business where you're generating lead gen, this is going to be applicable to you. There's a little bit of different stuff if you're running like e-com ads or anything like that. And we'll talk about that later, especially as I start diving into running e-com ads this year. But this in particular, we're running ads right now for gyms. We're still getting sub $5 leads. Most people are complaining that if you're running traffic on Facebook, that the iOS updates completely, screwed it over and lead cost is through the roof. And yeah, it can be if you just don't know what you're doing. Or, so let's talk about if that's happening for you, how you can actually take a look at changing it and what should be done and what are maybe some of the metrics that we're seeing right now. And today I'll be talking about Facebook ads, what to look at to make improvements. On another time, I'll talk about really how to structure your ads on Facebook and how to go about all that. But that's kind of another conversation, and we'll do that at another time. And I still think Facebook is one of the best ways to generate traffic. Now, I love paid advertising. When I started learning direct response, it really changed the game for my business. So I really want to encourage you, especially if you're a local business owner or you're a gym owner, and you haven't had success with Facebook traffic yet, to not give up on it. It still works really well. You just have to know what you're doing. And a lot of what worked back in the day still works now. Maybe it's not as simple or as easy, but that's how everything is. Things change. But there's really a couple things that we're looking at. And when it goes back to paid traffic, I love paid traffic because if you own a business, you want to get attention. And with paid traffic online, you have a multitude of different areas. You could go Google, you could go Facebook, you could go, YouTube. When I talk to Facebook, I also mean IG. Now you can go also TikTok. That is really crushing it as well. But I'm going to talk about Facebook right now. Because most people are probably have run or are running ads on there at this current time. So when I'm looking at Facebook ads, the #1 thing I'm going to look for is lead flow, especially for gyms. Gyms, I recommend a minimum spending about $50 a day, but I like to spend about $100 a day in local markets. Going above that doesn't really seem to have as great of a return. And we've gone up to $150, $200 a day, not all the time, but generally speaking, I like if you're at that $100 a day mark, so $50 to $100 a day. So keep that in mind when I'm talking about this. And if you're selling a product that's $500, $1,000, $1,500, $2,500, you can get a really quick ROI, because if you're generating traffic, you're getting those leads and they're booking appointments, you can spend that $100 a day and then the next day, or sometimes even later that day, sell a $500 program. And boom, now you already had, just if you spend $100, a 5x return. And then that compounds. The more leads you generate, the more appointments get booked, more people that show up, more people that sign up for your program. So when doing, especially Facebook traffic, it should always return a net positive if the ads are working and then the sales processes are in place. So with understanding like, hey, that's how much we're going to be spending a day in context for this conversation. One of the things I'm going to look at first is lead flow. I want to make sure that I'm generating at least 5 to 10 leads per day through Facebook, spending that much. Now, some markets are going to have a little bit higher of a cost per lead, which means if you're going to get less leads for however much you're spending. So that's the second metric I'm going to look at is cost per lead. In no market should your leads be really costing more than $25. We're really seeing between that $5 to $15 range. But even right now, in the last couple of weeks, we put ads up and we've gotten for some gyms in Canada generating, I think it was like $1.50 leads. It was pretty awesome and something I didn't anticipate, but it also can, if you're not used to running Facebook traffic, it can become very overwhelming when you get, in one day off of like $35, you get 19 leads, all popping in, over half of them booking appointments. It can create definitely a problem where it can become overwhelming if you're not used to it. So keep that in mind. If you have a good offer that you're putting out there, everything's working, it can really dramatically change your business pretty quickly. So we're looking at 5 to 10 leads a day. And then we want to make sure that our cost per lead is under 25. But really, most markets should be between $5 to $15 in lead cost. So those are the two metrics that I'm going to look at first. All right, am I getting enough lead flow? And then is my cost per lead really good? Because if I know that I'm getting 5 to 10 leads, a day, then over time, over the course of the week, that's going to allow me to sign up at least 1 or 2 people a day. And that's the goal that I try and set for gyms is, hey, we should be signing up 5 people to 10 people a week. And if you're outside of that, then we got to take a look at advertising as well as your sales processes. So those are the two metrics. If those are in place, then good. The ads are or if those things are happening, good. The ads are performing well. Doesn't mean you don't still try and improve them. So we're always going to be looking at the other data that goes with it to improve it. And there's 4 big areas, key metrics that we're going to look at that are really going to influence your lead flow and your cost per lead. And those 4 are going to be your cost per click, your click-through rate, your CPM or cost per 1,000 impressions, and then your landing page conversion percentage. Now, landing page conversion, you could also use lead ads on Facebook, but generally speaking, I like to do my best to get landing pages to be the ones that are converting, just higher quality leads. So those are the 4 metrics that we're going to look at. And right now, we're seeing the cost per click to be, what we like for gyms, want it to be like between $1, $1.50 for the CTR, really 2.5% or more. The CPMs, they're going to be around like 20, 25 for most markets. And then landing page conversion percentage, like my goal is to get it as close to 30% or more. But you're going to see anywhere between like that 15 to 25. And those are like the numbers that we consider to be the good metrics that we're looking at. And if our ads are falling in line with those, then they're probably performing pretty well. So the question is, if when you take a look at your data and those numbers are off, if you're not getting the lead flow that you want, you're not getting the cost per lead that you want, or you're just actually looking at it, let's say it's good, but you want to improve it, because that's something we always should want to do, is always improve what we're putting out there. You take a look at that data and something is not in line. So if we think about it, since we're talking fitness, my background is fitness, I really started learning like through Poliquin Performance Center and Charles Poliquin and his ways. And he did something a little bit differently when it came to what he called biosignature modulation. And in biosignature modulation, it talks about, I can't remember if they do, it's like a 9-point or more body fat test. And when they were doing those body fat tests, they wanted to make sure everything was kind of in line. Everything was, whether it be on the pec, cheek, leg, or whatever, that they were kind of even in body fat distribution. And if the body fat distribution, if you had a certain area, such as like your lower back that had more body fat, that was related to some sort of intolerance or hormonal issue. And that is where they wanted to correct, especially when it came nutritionally or with supplementation to change your body composition to get everything, hormones firing correctly. So, but if everything was on track, it was like, cool, then we can just, improve just about everything and continue on pace and doing the standard stuff. as opposed to like, hey, we're having insulin issues. According to them, these are the things that we're going to change. It's the same thing with your ads. If everything is on track, you kind of find the one that's maybe a little bit of the highest, and then you can work on improving that. Or you just keep doing the standard practices of like, hey, these are the kind of things that we change on a more regular basis. But what's probably going to happen is if you're not, the lead flow or the lead cost isn't where you want it to be, one of those metrics or two of those metrics are probably going to be off. And if they're off, if they're not in line with where we want, then here's what we can do to improve it. Now, those numbers are specific to really gyms. So other industries might be a little bit different, and you want to take a look at it. And again, this is for lead gen. So we're running at, and we're also not running ads just when I say lead gen, our lead gen is name, phone number, email, not just email. If you're just getting, like, anytime you reduce something that you ask to receive in your ads, you're actually everything's going to get cheaper. So if I'm just asking for email, all that stuff, click, the cost per click, click through rate, all that's going to be cheaper. But when I'm adding, another layer, especially with the phone number, it's going to increase stuff. So those are the three elements on our ads for gyms that we're getting, because again, I want ads to perform, but I also want to expedite kind of that sales process to get people coming into the gym. The goal of, and this is important to also know, the goal of ads being run for gyms is to get people to come in so that you can do a consult, figure out what their issues are, and then put them into your front end program most likely. Or if they're not a good fit, let them know. So knowing that's the goal in mind, we always like to get their phone number, because we want to get this person from lead to sign up as quick as possible. And part of our follow-up processes, especially when it comes to sales, is the calls that we're making and the text that we're making. So anyway, we're getting that data. If one of those numbers are off, what does it mean? So the first one is the cost per click. If your cost per click isn't where you want it to be, this generally means two things. One, the offer isn't very good and people aren't interested in it, or the creative isn't good. And by the creative, I mean the video and the images that you're using. So if you're offered like nothing, you could have badass looking ads, absolutely great copy, a killer landing page, but if your offer sucks, it doesn't matter. So you need to make sure that you're having a really good offer that you're putting in to the marketplace to really attract your clients. I think we've talked about this, I'm not 100% sure, but we'll talk about that another time. So it's your offer may be off. The most common, I think gyms run are like free weeks. I don't personally like free weeks. That's me. I like to have some sort of more structured offer, or it could be your creative. Creative is also something that we test in our ads about 10 different pieces of creative at a time between videos and images. And we also try and create new creative every single week. And then we test it all against creative that has traditionally worked too. So you want to make sure that you have really good creative. So if you're finding that your cost per click is pretty high and your offer's good, take a look at the creative that you're putting in there. And then the next thing you want to look at is, hey, click-through rate. If the click-through rate isn't good, so that could mean, hey, I'm getting the attention, but people aren't going through, as far as the impressions, everything like that, then I'm going to look at the copy. Maybe the copy isn't good. And this is a big component of your ad, but we want to get their attention first. And then when we get their attention through that offer and that creative, then they're going to read the copy. And if the copy entices you, when you're doing your copy, generally speaking, you want to sell the click. So you want to sell them to the next step. So you want to make sure that your copy is getting in there. So a copy formula that I really like, and there's three that are really good, is actually I got from Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank. And I don't know, downloaded some free book a long time ago. And it's Tease-Please-Seize. So I think about that when I'm writing copy. Tease them, in the headline, the offer, all that stuff at the beginning. Then I please them when I get so once I get their attention with that headline or the creative, I tease them at the beginning, please them, tell them exactly how I'm going to help them or whatever. And then I seize them, I tell them the next step that they need to go. So thinking of something like that is a good structure for when you're writing your copy. Copy should also, especially for ads, 1, maybe 2 sentences at a time. Don't write books or any of that crap. And there's a lot more. We'll go into copy at another time. It's a really good, what a really good effective ad copy is. But, Tease-Please-Seize is a really simple formula I like to use. AIDA as well as the PASS formula. Those are really, really good structures too when you're writing ad copy. Now, if your cost per click is good and your click-through rate is good, or those have already been fixed, the next thing is your CPM. The CPM is a little bit tougher for you to have control over, so your cost per 1,000 impressions. That could really be influenced by the density of your market, like actual population density, the amount of advertisers that are going to the same audience that you're going to. Like those things can really drive up higher CPMs. And Facebook itself CPMs have just dramatically gone up. That's one of the real cool things about TikTok. We're seeing is the CPMs are significantly lower. So one thing that we have noticed though that has an impact on your CPM is the organic content that you're putting up on your pages. So the more organic content and good organic content that gets engaged with, the lower your CPMs seem to be. It can have a little bit of effect. So a little bit less of your control in the CPM. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you have a higher CPM, chances are you're probably going to have a higher cost per lead as a result, especially if you're kind of doing lead gen like the way that we do it. So CPMs. And then the final piece is your landing page conversion. And this, I think I talked to, no, I didn't talk about it on this, but this was, one gym owner, he's killing the game. Like I think in December, he had his best month ever. Doing about 70K, mostly semi-private based training, over 50% net margin in that month. And traditionally his months have always been about close to like 50% right now. So we've been working together because he's looking to scale. He's looking to open multiple locations and everything like that. But his cost per lead, with the individual he's working with, this was like just tough. So we took a look at it. And the first thing that we did was just change his landing page, because everything else was pretty decent, but when they got to landing page, it was something like 5 or 10% conversion. And we're like, hey, here's some tweaks to make, landing page wise, all that good stuff. And then the next thing you know, like I think it got up to like somewhere between 20 and 30%. And his lead cost was like cut by over 60%, 70%, something like that. It was super dramatic. He traditionally, because it's a smaller market, has a little bit of a higher lead cost. But they're booking and they're showing up and they're buying, so it's okay. They're still high quality, but we still want to make sure we're improving lead flow as much as possible. So just taking a look at it, we're like, hey, the weak link in this process, although I think like maybe the offer could be changed too, was the landing page. Like, so if you can get the landing page to convert more, then you want to have it. And a big thing that I found between landing pages, the ads and landing pages not converting, is a lack of congruency. So that's something that can be a real big killer in your ad performance. If your ads are saying one thing and then they're going to a landing page and it's saying something completely different. You'd be surprised at how often that happens. So you want to kind of repeat the same stuff. Remember, your ads selling the click, and then when they get the landing page, that's selling them to opt in, not selling them on the program unless you're actually doing a purchase. But we're doing lead gen. The selling is going to happen in the gym. So we want to make sure that we're selling the next step of the process. And even when it comes to landing pages, although right now we're doing a little bit more longer form copy on our landing pages, we've also used very short, copy and more like, hey, here's minimum info, do that. And those are two ways to kind of test. So to circle it back, we're still seeing right now, especially on Facebook, that there's really good lead flow and there's really good cost per lead. I was just thinking about a lot of people say like, oh, this leads into high quality or any of that stuff. If somebody's going to a landing page and they're putting in their information, or even if you're using lead ads and you're using higher intent lead ads, if they're putting in their information, there was interest. Then it comes down to what's that follow-up look like. So like just because you're generating, leads, if you have bad follow-up, doesn't matter. So this is just the first step in, getting that acquisition of new clients for your gyms. But we're going to look at what's our what's our lead flow? Are we getting the quantity of leads that we want on a daily basis for how much we're spending? Then what's our cost per lead? And then if those are in line or they're not in line, here's the tweaks that we're going to look at. We're going to take a look at the cost per click. We're going to take a look at the click-through rate. We're going to take a look at the CPM. And we're going to take a look at the landing page conversion percentage. That's it. That's all the data that you need to look at, to make sure that your ads are converting. And each one of those will kind of tell you where's off in your ads and what you need to do to increase that performance. So just like when I started running ads, when I started running ads for the gyms back in 2014, it was way easier, but the formula, the principles, they were still very similar. So obviously, Facebook's matured, more people are advertising. They put a little bit, it's not as, what you can put up there is not as easy or whatever. You have to have some little workarounds and stuff like that, but it still works really well. you can still get super cheap leads, super high quality leads. Just might take a little bit more hands-on involvement of management of your ads. And that's just, from there. And that we'll talk ad strategy at the later time. But if your ads aren't performing, or you want to know just how can you get your ads to perform better, that's what I look at for any of the lead gen ads, especially for gyms. But this is local business, really we're saying, especially e-com, very similar stuff you're going to be looking at as well. Numbers may be different, but those are performance metrics when you're running ads. So I hope today was helpful. If it was, the only thing that I ask is you leave a comment or you share it with somebody else that will get some value. I do these for free just because I want to share what's working for me and what's worked in the past, and then kind of like what I'm doing in my businesses, just so that I can help you, whether you're starting your business or you're scaling your business. So I really hope that you're getting value. And if you know somebody else who's in the similar shoes as you, that's looking to start a business, scale their business, and you think they get value out of this, really appreciate that you would share it with them. So until next time, catch you later.
Hey, thanks for spending your time with me today. I made this show to help people just like you overcome the challenges and adversity that come with entrepreneurship. So if you know someone that could truly benefit from today's show, please be sure to share this episode with them. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week on Unleashing Greatness.